The BBC News now on BBC One with Peter Sissons.
Gielgud, the last of the 20th century theatre giants, is dead. At 96, the end of an era and an illustrious acting talent. £29 million more for the Dome to stave off bankruptcy. And the first pictures of why the Prime Minister will be taking most of the week off. Good evening. The British Theatre is tonight mourning Sir John Gielgud, who's died at the age of 96. He stood alongside the century's acting legends, Woolfit, Olivier, Redgrave and Richardson, and many believe he was the best, certainly in the classic roles he made his own, but with a range that over more than 70 years brought him wider acclaim. Trevor Nunn, director of the Royal National Theatre, quoted Shakespeare, "There's a great spirit gone." Our arts correspondent Nick Hyam looks back on his achievements.
In London's Theatreland tonight, the lights went out at 7 in tribute to one of the 20th century's greatest actors. So great, they named a theatre after him on his 90th birthday. His talent commanded respect from audiences around the world.
He was an amazing actor, made history for acting in the UK and all over the world.
He's a fascinating person. I think it's very tragic, very sad.
Where be your jibes now? Your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar. Not one now to mock your own grinning.
For decades, he electrified the British stage. Those who saw it never forgot his performance as Hamlet. Audiences and critics alike applauded. He played Macbeth at 25, as well as other Shakespearean leads, including Richard III. In 1953, he was knighted and joined a small, titled elite of English actors like Dame Peggy Ashcroft and Sir Ralph Richardson.
With his going, I really feel the 20th century, for the first time, I feel it has ended. I never understood the millennium, but now that John has gone, I understand it's all over. He was the greatest example of classical acting this world has ever known.
He was a fine film actor and comedian as well. As Dudley Moore's butler in Arthur, he won an Oscar.
You're a man who has everything, haven't you? But that's not enough. You feel unloved, Arthur. Welcome to the world. Everyone is unloved. Now stop feeling sorry for yourself, and incidentally, I love you.
He was a very remarkable man. He was a very funny man, you see. That's the marvellous thing about him. And he was self-deprecating about himself almost. But he loved the business, and he loved actors and actresses, and was devoted to them, and loyal and kind and thoughtful.
Think of it as two separate melodies, just in supremacy.
He was renowned for his beautiful voice and perfect diction. He was still making films like Shine well into his 90s, and until the past few months lived a busy, active life.
Make no mistake, David. It's dangerous. People get hurt.
He went to see The Lion King at Christmas and loved it. And we were making plans last time I was there for me to take him to the theatre. And I was sort of hoping, actually, to bring him here, to the Gielgud Theatre.
The great gossip and partygoer hated growing old. He was asked what he thought would happen to him after he died.
I try not to think about it, because it doesn't end in point. You'll never get an answer. So you may as well hope for the best. Somebody will say a kind word, but not too kind.
He remained at heart a Shakespearean actor, and in Peter Greenaway's film version of The Tempest, he played Prospero, fulfilling a lifelong ambition.
We are such stuff as dreams are made on. And our little life is rounded with a sleep.
And there'll be a special programme paying tribute to Sir John Gielgud on BBC Two tomorrow night at 10 to 10. The Millennium Dome was handed a £29 million lottery lifeline today. It's also admitted it won't attract nearly as many visitors this year as had previously been expected. Today's grant means the project has now received more than £530 million of public money.
Into the fray, P.Y. Gerbeau brings his considerable charm to bear on the latest humiliation of the Millennium Dome. It may have gone cap in hand for yet more cash, but P.Y. reckons he's doing just fine.
I think I'm a tremendous success, and we have been proving for 3 months. If we get a step back now, I've been pulled here to fix a product that was not working. The operation is sparkling. The product is sparkling. All the promises that we've done is that the fact is people are going out the door and they're fantastically happy about their experience.
Fantastically happy rather overstates the verdict of these visitors, but they generally had fun.
Well, I thought it was excellent, and I liked the part when we went into the island part, because the people in there were very nice. And it showed you the heart, and it's beating really fast, and it's scary and horrible.
Some rides, that would have topped it.
Would you like to come back?
No, not particularly.
From the start, the Dome has relied on handouts. It was built with a £449 million grant from the Millennium Commission. Earlier this year, it was loaned another £60 million to help with cash flow problems. Today, the new Millennium Company asked for a £38.6 million bailout, but the Millennium Commission came up with £29 million and said enough is enough.
Clearly there is never a blank cheque, and we talk closely with NMEC management and P.Y. Gerbeau, and we have no expectation that it is going to fail.
On reflection, the Dome's critical mistake was to massively overestimate the number of visitors it would attract. It originally forecast 12 million in a year. That's reduced today to 7 million, which will still make it Britain's most popular pay-to-visit attraction. But a former Dome designer turned fierce critic fears more good money is being thrown after bad.
And I think the Dome has already absorbed, to no very good purpose, a huge amount of public money, and it's absorbed a huge amount of public goodwill. And I would have thought it's getting quite near to the end of that now. I mean, I think the credit has long since run out.
This is the day when wild optimism and commercial reality collided head-on in Greenwich. The collision has left both major political parties humiliated and the operators of less grand projects wondering what they could have done with just a sliver of the vast fortune that's been sunk forever in the Millennium Dome experience. Peter Morgan, BBC News.
Downing Street has released the first pictures of the Prime Minister's new son, Leo, together with his proud parents. The baby's arrival has prompted Tony Blair to pull out of this week's Prime Minister's questions in the Commons, as well as Thursday's meeting of the Cabinet. Our special correspondent, Gavin Hewitt, reports.
A Prime Minister, his wife and their new baby, captured just 38 hours after the birth. A glimpse of the first baby to reside in Downing Street in 150 years. Leo, who has already given his father disturbed nights, slept through his first photo call. These are informal, intimate pictures of a family enjoying the arrival of a new baby. Cherie Blair, who admits to being tired, looked a little weary, but is seen throwing back her head in laughter. Another shows the Prime Minister looking into the face of his fourth child, who was so unexpected. In the least formal picture, he's seen stretched out on the floor with his new son beside him. It can be sensed from these pictures that despite their public position, there is a determination to enjoy a special moment in their family's life. The pictures were taken by Sir Paul McCartney's daughter Mary, a choice made by Cherie Blair. One picture was issued free by Downing Street, the others were shown on a special website, and news organisations like the BBC had to buy the pictures. The money raised will be shared with two cancer charities, Sargent Cancer Care for Children and Breast Cancer Care. Cherie Blair is a patron to both.
We're delighted. It's tremendously generous of Cherie, and it's really important for the organisation to receive donations because we're basically publicly funded and we have over 20,000 calls a year to our helpline, and obviously we need funds in order to provide those services.
Tony Blair revealed today his plans to spend more time with his family and with his new baby. He decided this morning that he won't appear at question time on Wednesday, thereby saving himself hours of preparation. And he won't chair the Cabinet meeting on Thursday. Downing Street insists he's still in overall charge of the government, but he has decided to cut back on some official duties. If Cherie Blair is looking for rest, Downing Street is not proving the place to find it. Firstly, a military band decided to practice outside their apartment. Then, for 4 hours, a helicopter hovered right overhead. observing a noisy demonstration against the war in Eritrea. So, later this week, they'll escape to the relative quiet of Chequers. Gavin Hewitt, BBC News.
Hezbollah fighters in southern Lebanon have occupied about a third of the so-called security zone, which Israel has controlled for more than 20 years. They've taken over positions abandoned by the pro-Israeli militia group, the South Lebanon Army, whose forces are fleeing ahead of a planned withdrawal of Israeli troops by July the 7th. From southern Lebanon, Jeremy Bowen reports.
Hezbollah flags going up on abandoned positions. For the Lebanese, this feels like victory. Israel's ally, the South Lebanon Army, is collapsing. Its abandoned weapons were taken away in triumph. An occupation that has lasted 22 years is coming apart. Thousands of Lebanese civilians moved in to reclaim their land as they heard that village after village was being abandoned by Israel and the SLA. There were reunions and rejoicing. It's been a long and bitter war. Dozens of SLA fighters have given themselves up, hoping for a fair trial from the Lebanese government. They were driven away by government soldiers. But while the occupation is crumbling, it's not over yet, and neither is the war. Israel launched airstrikes and attacked with helicopter gunships. Civilians turned and fled as the SLA shelled the roads.
The UN says that today the SLA ceased to exist as an effective fighting force, but they're still organized enough to shell this road on which there are thousands of Lebanese civilians. Now the Hezbollah Islamic resistance have started to fire back. They're hitting that SLA fortress just up there.
This war is still claiming victims. Israel hoped to control the speed of its pullout from Lebanon, but events on the ground are starting to dictate the pace. And, despite everything, Lebanese people are trying to get back to their homes, and they will keep trying until the Israelis leave. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, South Lebanon.
Here, Chris Cotter, the former boyfriend of the black triple jumper Asher Hansen, has appeared in court accused of sending her racist hate mail. He and two other men are also charged with perverting the course of justice. Mr. Cotter claimed to have been the victim of a racially motivated attack in March outside Miss Hansen's home in Birmingham.
2 months ago, the police considered the attack on Chris Cotter as a serious racially motivated crime. Today, he was brought to court along with two other men to face a series of charges. Chris Cotter, who was slashed across the forehead in the incident, is the former boyfriend of Asher Hansen. She is one of Britain's highest profile athletes, a medal prospect for this summer's Olympics. Mr. Cotter told police he was visiting Asher Hansen's Birmingham home at the end of March when he was attacked and stabbed by a gang of racists. In the end, senior officers dismissed a racial motive for the crime, instead charging Mr. Cotter and two other men with 3 offences.
Perverted the course of public justice by maintaining that there had been a racist attack. Secondly, that jointly they sent racist material with intent to cause harassment, alarm or distress. And thirdly, that they jointly conspired to obtain financial gain by deception by selling stories to newspapers and others.
The other two men cited in the charges, Surjit Sinclair and Chris Wynn, both from the Midlands, do face a 4th charge, that they conspired to inflict grievous bodily harm on Chris Cotter. All 3 men appeared together in the dock this afternoon here at Birmingham Magistrates Court. In a hearing lasting more than an hour, each spoke only 3 times to confirm their name, address and date of birth. This evening, Asher Hansen gave her first reaction to the case. In a statement she said, "This has caused not only me but my family, friends and teammates a great deal of stress. I now have to focus all my energy on my preparations for the Olympic Games." Chris Cotter and the other 2 men facing charges have been remanded in custody and will reappear before magistrates next week. Richard Bilton, BBC News, Birmingham.
All criminals could have their illegal assets seized under new legislation planned for England and Wales. Under the proposals, rules allowing the seizure of profits from drug trafficking will be extended to cover other offences. The money raised would be used to help homeless people or rehabilitate drug addicts. The government has suffered a defeat in the Lords over war widows' pensions. Peers voted by a majority of 26 to allow widows to keep receiving their pensions even if they remarry. A wide-ranging review of war pensions is due to report next month. Rebels in Sierra Leone have released a further 29 UN troops, all Zambians, but still hold around nearly 300. The United Nations Secretary-General Kofi Annan says he wants a significant increase in the numbers of UN peacekeeping troops in the country and warned the total could go higher. Tomorrow, the Cabinet here is expected to consider a plan to withdraw British troops and as well as requests for arms and help from the Sierra Leone government.
Emboldened by British support, the Sierra Leonean army are pushing forward into positions hitherto held by rebel RUF forces. Today, at an abandoned compound once held by UN peacekeepers, they found the remains of at least 6 bodies, possibly more. Alarmingly for a UN mission already badly demoralized, some of the dead were wearing the uniforms of Zambian peacekeepers. The UN insists that that does not in itself constitute evidence that the dead men were UN soldiers.
Before we can confirm that, we have to investigate thoroughly. We know, for example, that the RUF have taken Zambian uniforms, and the fact that it's a Zambian uniform doesn't therefore immediately indicate it's a Zambian soldier.
On the ground, the nature of Britain's intervention grows clearer by the day. A team of senior British staff officers led by Brigadier David Richards have already taken effective command of the government forces. But it's the logistical support that is more fluid. RAF helicopters are already ferrying food and water to frontline combat troops on the government side. Now, Sierra Leone has asked for arms and ammunition as well. The opposition here say this carries the clear danger of being sucked into a greater but ill-defined role in someone else's fight.
Are our troops going to simply stay where they are, pretending that they're on a mission which, frankly, they saw off 2.5 weeks ago? Or are we seriously now talking about being in support of President Kaba, in support